Order.
All right. If we get the lights back on.
Hey, Matt.
Yeah, they're on.
Awesome. All right, apologies for the delay. We're trying to get our tech worked out so that this shows up for everybody. So thank you for your patience. You may have the floor now.
Great, thank you. Good morning, everyone. So I'm not sure how you have been doing these, but
Basically, state your name and what your department
yes,
is with.
sure. Matt Cosgrove, Conservation Director, and then Cody Peterson is our Operations Supervisor. So Cody typically handles our IRVM, our rural basic side of things, so he'll speak to that side of the budget. But basically, you can see from the budget we submitted, we've got about less than a 1% change that we're looking at in our general and rural basic funds. About 12 line items that really everything is almost identical to the last fiscal year other than a few changes. So we had 12 line items that changed. I tried to highlight those in either green or red on your far right. I don't know if you guys have a copy of that or if you're seeing that, but basically those are increases that we're projecting based on insurance costs, rising costs in like internet, tires have been one that we've been seeing an increase in, that sort of thing. So we're showing 8 line items with small increases, overall increase, roughly around $16,000-$17,000 in this general basic budget. And then we're already changing things here. Touch it. So I figured we'd just kind of run through this, and then I put together this proposal because I'm more of a visual person, and this kind of speaks to the budget in a bigger picture, and especially the special projects and our capital projects and special funds. So with that, does anybody have any questions? Obviously, we left out salaries in this. I did notice that when I deleted the salaries, I deleted the conservation board and comp board expenses. That's typically to reimburse our board members that attend fall conferences and that sort of thing. So there's a $3,000 expenditure that apparently I deleted when I deleted the salaries.
Add that in, and if all of you, sorry to interrupt, Matt, if all of you look at the spreadsheet that I recently sent you or your budget worksheet, it gives you the salaries put back in as if they were this year in those line items. There might be some that I have to work on with you on, but
Yeah,
they should be pretty close.
They are. We only have, I think, 2 people left on step increases. So we've got 3 employees of our 12 that are kind of, I would say, other senior employees that are at the end of their career or nearing the end of their careers. We have 3 that are just starting their careers, and then the bulk of them in the middle there with a good, mix of experience. So the one that's probably changed most significantly is Tessa. We hired a second employee at the OHV park. But as a reminder, those employees they're reimbursed at 100% from the grant program. So the county budgets the money for them for their expenditures for salary and FICA and IPERS and health insurance, but reimbursed at 100% for those expenditures through the grant. We do a quarterly reimbursement through that grant. It's managed by the Growth Alliance. So Emily at the Growth Alliance manages that grant. When we receive it annually, it goes to their account, and then we draw those funds quarterly on a reimbursement basis for expenditures. So
2 employees under the deputy line item, or is that just 1?
those are 2. That's 2 park rangers. Yep.
With the grant, there's no, because I know in other boards I'm on, there's always talk of, which grants are still going to be around. That grant's not going anywhere, I'm assuming.
Fortunately, that one's in good shape. So it's an actually growing grant because of the ATV. That's funded through the ATV registration fund. And since the state legalized OHVs on roadways, the registration numbers have really increased because that's a requirement to be able to ride them on the roadways. So that grant is, I think they're sitting on like $4 million surplus in that fund. So annually, the way that works is we apply with the other 6 parks for funding. Basically 50% of that registration fund goes into the DNR for administration of the program. 50% goes to the competitive nature of that grant program for the 6 parks. With ours being the largest, we typically get at least $200,000 a year through that program. Again, the bulk of that reimburses our staff, but it pays for all of the equipment at the facility. It pays for all the fuel. It pays for fencing, all the maintenance activities of the park. And then the county side of that, which we'll show you here on a slide, is a pretty small number, but that's for the campground. So the campground is our expenditure because we lease that. The park itself, the 800 acres park, is funded through the DNR grant program. Yep. Any other questions, I guess, about specific line items? Again, tried to pull some of those down, where we haven't been expending those. We have been seeing a little surplus. We spread our fuel for the department over, basically the general fund, the rural basic fund, and we have some out of the OHV park, fund. So we have 3 places that we pull fuel from. Nothing else really sticks out to me. Any questions? We do, probably one of the larger expenditures you see there is requesting a cab for our snow blower. So we have a John Deere tractor that's actually a mower that we've been using as with a snow blower attachment on it, but it has no cab. So you can imagine on days like this, how chilly that is blowing snow for the staff that have to run that thing around. And we're actually, the city and the county, we partner to remove trail snow. So we have certain sections of in town, especially all the stuff down in the riverfront area, Loomis, Snell Crawford, those areas that we do. And a lot of that gets done with that snow blower. So we're proposing to purchase a cab for that if we can. Otherwise, we'll probably trade in our existing mower and purchase one with a cab, which will actually work out well in the summer too, just because like when we mow to Badger now on that, you can imagine the wind all blowing that back on you when they mow that trail. So it'll have a dual purpose.
Sorry.
That is, we've got it budgeted in Ag and Hort. So we've got an Ag and Hort expense where typically we'll purchase like our mowers. So we try to keep our mowers on a rotation where they're always under warranty, which has worked out really well for us. When something goes down, we're able to get a replacement right away as a loaner. And then we keep those larger expenditures underneath the warranty. So it protects us overall budget wise a little bit better. We get really good government pricing on the mowers, and then we get really good trade-in values since we keep them for only a couple years. But you can imagine 3 mowers are typically running almost all the time with the amount of mowing that our staff is doing.
A little off topic, but the Gallery and Dayton Trail, that we transfer that over to the city ownership. Is that correct?
Correct.
Has that already been done then,
We're
or?
working on that right now, actually, with Darren. He's working on those documents. So Dayton, fortunately, was all on city property, so we don't have any property to transfer for that trail. Gallery, we've got a couple parcels that he's helping us transfer those, and hopefully we'll have those done here within the next maybe 60 days.
Then with the Dayton restaurant or whatever that they established there, we don't collect any revenue on that, do we? Or we?
Correct, no.
Okay, perfect.
With the, I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say, I do have a presentation that I'll be doing hopefully at your next board meeting that'll wrap up, show you kind of the overall wrap up of those projects, what was expended, how much came back into the community, all that kind of stuff. So hopefully that'll be on your next agenda.
Thank you.
With the cab for that mower, is that a mower we're gonna like expect to be replacing soon? I'm kind of thinking of like depreciation and, where is the most value? Is it something that's going to be depreciation and traded out soon, and it's going to make this kind of a moot investment in the cab that we're going to have to, still relatively quickly go buy another one? Or is this like a newer mower that you've got that we'll have for a little while anyway, have for a longer duration of time? I'm trying to think of where the best investment would be.
Yep. And that's what we're doing as well. We'll see so this mower actually is a 4-wheel drive diesel John Deere mower that we keep long-term out front deck. So usually we keep that one for quite a while. It'll go outside of the warranty just because it's a large expenditure to start with. The other 2, those are the ones that rotate all the time. Those are our 0 turns. So they see the bulk of the mowing. But this one we do hang on to for a while. So what we'll probably do, and Cody's already received some cost estimates on this for putting a cab on our existing mower. And we're, like you said, we're probably going to have to, balance that out. Does it make more sense to just trade this in on a new mower with a cab on it, or buy an aftermarket cab and put it on this existing mower? So
I said, that's kind of my concern when you talk about that kind of investment. If we're going to put the cab on this year and then next year we're going to be trading it in, and it's not going to help the value of it. So at what point do we have, that diminishing value? And the better investment would be something, a new one with the cab on it. I guess that's, if you guys are working through that works for me again.
And we're also, Cody's putting together this winter kind of a replacement. We have kind of a rough, definitely for our vehicles and our mowers. We're now starting to put together a replacement program for the other pieces of equipment so we can at least have a target in there when we want to replace this, just because there is that fine line of trade-in value where we don't see very much of an increase in cost, and we can keep these things kind of in and out pretty quick. And we don't, especially a skid loader, like we just found out here, we purchased one of those here in the last, year, because we were having some failing hydraulic parts on one. So it was cheaper to purchase a new one actually than to actually repair the one we had. So we're starting to put together some ideas of that on a larger replacement scale because we got a great trade-in value for that, even though, it wasn't going to be a great machine for us. So there's some value to getting that equipment, keeping it relatively new so that we get good turnaround on it. We don't have to make a $70,000 expenditure. We can make a $20,000 expenditure.
Well, I think it helps with forward planning, right? So like next year's budget, you already kind of have an idea that we're going to have to replace X, Y, or Z. And to me, it helps kind of streamline your budget process then, because you already we know where we're going with it. We know what we're going to need. To me, it helps us be really forward thinking in our budgets then.
We're doing that with our computers too. So I actually had Joe in IT work on our computers, put together like an inventory of what we have, the years. And so we're putting together kind of a replacement schedule on those. We typically budget to replace 1 or 2 of those computers per year in our budget. So we're trying to schedule those out now, like who's is going next. And we just actually ordered, I think we have 2 of them on that are waiting for us right now. So trying to put all that equipment on a better, not that it necessarily can happen, but at least we're going to plan it to try to have some targets to hit. Any other questions on the specific line items? Otherwise, I can kind of big picture, just kind of talk through a couple slides here.
So if nobody's got any questions, we'll go to the slides then.
Sounds good. So I'm more of a visual person. So I wanted to just throw these again, just kind of on an overall perspective. But our objectives for our budget obviously is to maintain and enhance our existing facilities in the land management areas that we manage. Obviously, to maintain a fiscally responsible budget, we try to keep our increases as minimal as possible, and to enhance our brand recognition and customer service. So with that, put together this is a snapshot of our general fund budget. You can see 70+% of this is staff and benefits. So the 12 full-time employees, 1 part-time employee, and again, 2 of those are reimbursed at 100%. And then the remainder of the expenditures, the administration is obviously our telephone and internet and office supplies, copy machine leases, those sort of things. Maintenance is more of the fuel, the, weed eaters, the actual on the ground work to do the work in the parks and wildlife areas. And then the OHV side that we budget on the county side is that 43,000, and that's for campground maintenance, the restroom facilities, water utilities, those sort of things in the campground. So projecting, you can see about $1.3 million of expenditures on the general fund. Our general fund revenue breakdown, projecting right now 261,000. This number is a little bit different than the one I gave you, Crystal, just because of those numbers at the OHV reimbursement. So as a reminder, the way our revenue works on a rec revenue, so camping, shelters, cabins, those sort of things are split 50-50. 50 cents of every dollar goes into the general fund, 50 cents goes into our trust fund. And then of that 50 cents that we put into the trust fund, we break that down again into 80-20. So 80% of that goes into park development projects. 20% of that goes into facilities. So if a water heater goes out, we can pay for it out of that money. So the user is paying for that rather than the taxpayer. So we've created that fund. So when air conditioners, refrigerators, the things that are in our tiny homes, yurts, all those sort of things, when they go out, we can use this facilities fund that's coming in off the revenue to make those expenditures, and it doesn't come out of our general fund budget. So that's been a huge help to us. So that number then basically, like camping, for example, $90,000. So we're projecting $180,000 in camping revenue and split 50-50. So if that makes sense. Same way with the cabin rental, same way with the shelter. The OHV reimbursement obviously goes 100% back into the general fund. So that's to reimburse the expenditures for Tasha and Tessa at the OHV park. Golf course lease, we get $6,000 annually for a cart shed lease that is a long-term agreement with the city of Fort Dodge for the golf course. And then we also have the original agreement, which is $1 or 25% of the profit after capital improvements. So typically we get $1. Obviously, they're putting money back into the course. So, and then obviously other gets to be some donations and some, when we sell outdated equipment, that sort of thing. So that's kind of random every year, and we try to budget that number low, obviously. So rural basic side of things, and I'll let Cody speak to the rural basic budget here when I wrap up, but basically you can see about $233,000 is what we're projecting here. A little over 50% is salaries and benefits. Not much for administration in this budget. And then the bulk of it is the spray contracts and the work that they do and the roadsides. So 50,000 of that, 107,000 in the maintenance is for a spray contract for spraying Canada thistle and leafy spurge and brush in the right of way. So Cody will reference that when he talks about the rural basic budget. So, and actually maybe we'll just do that now. Obviously, we can see we don't bring in a ton of revenue on this. Typically equipment rental for CRP planning when farmers either come in and ask Andy to custom seed for them or they purchase or they rent our drill. So. I'll maybe let you just speak to the line items in the.
Yeah. Thanks. So there isn't a whole lot of change overall to the rural basic budget side. I think maybe 5 line items are different. I'll just go over those one by one if that is okay. First one is the chemical and weed killer. You can see that went from 3,000 to 5,000, and that is because we're doing some lake spraying now after we drained the lake, got rid of all the carp, did some silt removal and stuff. Now the water's a whole lot cleaner. We have like 11 foot of visibility now versus used to be 1 or 2 feet, which has made more plants grow, which can kind of plug up the lake over by the boat ramp end. So kayakers and boaters have trouble now getting out to the main channel. So we're going to start doing some more spraying in the lake to kind of get that area cleaned out so that they have better access to the deeper part of the lake. So that's just more money for that aquatic chemical, basically. The 3,000 before that, that's for the roadside spraying that we do in-house for the noxious weeds, like Matt alluded to, the thistles and the spurge. So we lowered fuel some. Fuel prices have came down some, so we kind of cut that back a little bit. We hadn't been using that full 10,000 every year, so reduce that some. Office supplies we raised from 500 to 1,500. That was just to replace a computer, so that's why that went up. The agriculture and horticulture line item there, the 63,000. The 63000 line item. That was 30,000 last year. That was to purchase a new spray unit, or this current year, to purchase a new spray unit for Andy's spray truck. That's been reduced to 20,000 next year. That was to purchase a sander, like an actual set-in sander for our dump truck to sand the park roads, that boat ramp hill steep. Now that we have the lights of Kennedy out there, where Matt hand shoveled about 5 tons of sand this winter for lights of Kennedy.
Especially this winter.
So we use this a lot. I mean, this winter started out rough. Now it's been pretty good lately, but we've been hand sanding for decades, and so we're hopefully going to put a sander in the dump truck so we can just push a button instead. And then that data processing contracted services, that is for the right of way contract spraying. So for years we've been contracting B&W Control Specialists out of Algona to do the noxious weed spraying, which again, thistles, leafy spurge, that's in half the county every year. So basically Highway 20 is the line, the dividing line. And then they spray a quarter of the brush every year, just tiered out a quarter of the county every year. I think we're going to try to switch things up this next fiscal year. Our noxious weed complaints have pretty much went to 0, but the brush is getting worse. So that's increasing from 50 to 60,000. That's $60,000. What that would do would be to pay for half the brush spraying every year. So again, using Highway 20 roughly as a dividing line, we'd switch to a north and south half for brush spraying only through the contracted services. And now Andy, with this new spray truck unit we've gotten over the last year, got the truck last fiscal year, spraying unit this current fiscal year, he's going to be able to go out and spray better with this new equipment for the noxious weeds. So probably kind of working more on a complaint basis, or he has a map of like all the problem areas that he can go hit. And I think this will be a better use of that money to stay on top of the brush, because it gets out of control and we don't really have the equipment to do that in house. So that's where that 10,000 increase there is at. So if you look at the bottom line, factor all the decreases and increases, the RVM budget overall is increasing by $500. So from that 110,250 to 110,750. Are there any questions on any of that? No? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
So the special accounts, this is where it gets a little confusing. I think over the years, these change a little bit. So we do have the Conservation Trust Fund, which is our 2,700 fund. This is the one where 50% of that rec revenue goes into to fund park projects, trail, a variety of things. We match grants, that sort of thing with it. You can see there this is established through Iowa Code 350. The way this works is the supervisors put money into it and the conservation board takes money out of it. So it's got kind of a balance in how money goes in and how money comes out of that fund. You can see currently we're at about 367,000 balance in that. And again, we have 80% of that dollar figure is our development for projects. 20% of that is our facility maintenance. So if we lose, HVAC at a place, we can take it out of there kind of thing. So it's kind of our backup plan. REAP fund is a state appropriation. So county conservation boards receive, this is the only annual state appropriation we receive. So this is, it's supposed to be funded at $20 million. It never has been funded at that rate. They typically fund it at about 10 million. And we receive 2 checks, one per county and one per capita, because you spend 22 cents per $1,000 per valuation on conservation in Webster County. We receive those 2 checks. So it's about $17,000 a year that we receive. You can see that fund is sitting at about 123,000. We use that for conservation and education programs. So, a lot of the naturalist programs, but a lot of our on the ground habitat work comes out of this fund. We've also been using this to pay our share of a shared employee with Iowa State Extension as a shared naturalist position for the last two summers. And Trail Fund, that's a fund that was established by the Board of Supervisors years ago, mainly as a match for existing trail projects that we were working on. We were applying for grant funds and not getting them, but obviously, when you put money on the table, you're more likely to get money. So we've been very successful being able to use that fund to match other funding sources throughout. So, capital projects then for this year, the quality of life projects luckily are wrapped up as we had planned by the end of this last calendar year, 2025. We are in the process now of trying to get $4.4 million back through the Destination Iowa program and the Fish Habitat program are the 2 remaining grants that we have open. Our intent is to try to get that funding back before the end of this fiscal year. Our last request we submitted was July 17th, and I'm still waiting for, we are in round 2 of 4 rounds of review for the next reimbursement. So ridiculous on how long it's taking to get that money back, but we're working with Schneider Associates in the city, obviously, to provide all the information, but it's every invoice, every cleared check, every contract, every advertising, every bidder, everything has to be submitted into a website in order to get this money back. So we're working to try to get it back by the end of the fiscal year, but at that point, when we're talking 7+ months of back and forth, I don't know if we're going to get there, but that's what we're waiting on is $4.4 million that has been expended. So hopefully we can, expedite that through the process, and we may have to even lean on some of our friends in higher places to, keep this process moving along. We have an agreement for those dollars, so we need to get them back here because you guys put them up, and that money would be in a county interest-bearing account that's not right now. So that's significant dollars. Trail expenditures, at your previous meeting or the one before, you approved moving forward with design work for the 160th Street paving project. So that's a road paving project with Jamie and a trail connection on 160th with a painted bike lane. That will pretty much zero out the trail fund currently at about $214,000, I think was the last time I checked with you, Crystal, somewhere in that ballpark. And then I did put 100,000 in there. I've talked a little bit with Crystal. In the past, there has been some discussion about trying to just continue to put $100,000 into that fund if possible, just so we've got it there for match. We're also working with Humboldt County on the Three Rivers Trail. So if we move forward with putting an appropriation in there, we'd probably try to work with them on a 50-50 split to get the design work for that project done. And we have already lined up $750,000 for that project. It's going to be, just judging on, the Badger project, we're probably $4 million. So 750,000 we have secured. I think we'll be successful securing a lot of the construction money through state rec trail money because we're connecting 2 + 30-mile systems. So that will be a good connection. So in this year, it'd be nice to get the design work done as we're putting together more grant proposals. If we have the detailed design work done and some of the land acquisition pieces done, that's just going to help us score better. Kennedy Park Campground, we are currently doing a master plan. We use our trust fund dollars to hire Bolton and Mink to help us. The campground was built in the 1970s, and it is showing especially the sewer lagoon is showing signs of failing. So 50 plus years. So we're exploring 4 or 5 different options on how we can fix that issue. But obviously we need to put some money back into that campground. So that's why we don't really know until we get this plan done here over the next couple months on how that might look moving forward. But that's where we probably see the bulk of our trust fund money being spent over the next couple of years is in whatever comes out of that plan, is making some updates to Kennedy Park. And then the supplemental environmental projects, typically we only put money in there. Like right now we have money in there for the Meyer Marsh project. That's a 100% reimbursement grant project through IDOLS. I'm hoping to have that project done and complete, but right now I've just put some money into this existing budget in case we can't get that done. Contractor was supposed to have it done by now, but obviously with all the rain we had this last year and now we're frozen, there's still water out there. There's pumps that have to be put in, all the piping, all that kind of stuff still has to be done yet. So holding our breath and crossing our fingers that we're going to have that work done and have the reimbursement done by the end of the fiscal year, but just kind of putting in a marker in there that we may need to account for some money, hopefully not necessarily really on the expenditure side, but maybe on the reimbursement side coming back in if we can't get that grant closed out by then. So that's kind of in a big picture what we're looking at for capital projects. I forgot in the top portion up there, you can see the quality of life. As I mentioned, we're wrapping up. We still owe the city about $1 million for reimbursement for this existing project, the one that's just finished up on the riverfront. So the in-river features, the playscape, the eagle, the trails, all that sort of thing. So we're going to be expending that. And then we did commit through resolution $500,000 as a match to the city's phase 2 project, which they've already awarded to Jensen. So we'll have to have a discussion on how that looks, moving forward as well. So hopefully we could take some of those reimbursement funds and be able to move those into that. So just a couple things to wrap up. Obviously, we're trying to do about a 1% increase, just 17,000 overall is kind of what we're projecting, obviously with no insurance step increases or cost of living increases. Our conservation board has asked us to put together a succession plan and reviewing current salaries and salary structures. So any changes that they would make, they would do that within their existing budget. So they're not, requesting additional funds for anything that would come out of that plan. The 2 employees at the OHV Park are completely funded through the grant program. 70% of our budget is basically salaries and benefits for the employees. And then the administrative maintenance costs are typically fixed. Those are, fuel, Mid-American, telephone costs, leases, that sort of thing. So the point of showing that is obviously with all the talk about property tax reduction, there's not a whole lot of places to reduce. So 70% is staffing and the other 30% are fixed expenses. So just to kind of highlight that. And then, of course, the special accounts we try to use for a variety of conservation recreation projects, and we try to leverage those dollars to get state, federal, and local funding to match those projects as well. So that is it. Questions?
Send us the slide deck when we get done. I know
Sure.
I have it. I don't know if you.
I added that one slide too on the capital projects too, since I sent that to you. So I'll send you the updated version. You bet.
Will you let us know when we need to start calling legislators and asking them about reimbursement or the grant money?
I think, I mean, we're working through the process. There is a process, but the process shouldn't take 7 months to get a reimbursement. So, I mean, we provided all the information. So, yeah, we may need to, as we start to get into that last quarter, we may need to start asking some serious questions. Because again, this money has been out there by this board. You fronted, $5 million that we've been trying to get back. So, and that's interest bearing that, the state has been holding on to all the Destination Iowa money for 4 years. You can imagine
Yeah.
what the interest looks like in that account.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
You bet. Thank you all. Thanks for your
Thanks.
partnership over the years, and I don't know when I'm done. Hopefully I'm not kicking anything out here. All yours.